The hidden tunnels beneath the Vatican, beneath the magnificent facade of St. Peter's Basilica, beyond the gaze of millions of pilgrims and tourists, lies another world. It is a realm of shadows and silence, of ancient dust and forgotten secrets. This is the Vatican necropolis, a city of the dead that predates the birth of Christ and upon which the very foundations of Christianity were laid. The story of the hidden tunnels beneath the Vatican is not a single narrative, but a complex tapestry woven from threads of archaeology, faith, history, and myth. It is a journey that begins in the time of the Roman emperors and winds its way through centuries, leading to one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the modern age and fueling speculation about mysteries that remain unsolved to this day. The geographical and historical context is paramount to understanding what lies beneath. The Vatican Hill, or Mons Vaticanus, was not always the spiritual heart of Christendom. In ancient Rome, it was an undesirable area on the far side of the Tiber River, outside the ancient city boundaries. It was a low-lying region prone to flooding from the river, and its name is thought to be derived from the Latin word vaticinare, meaning to prophesy, a reference to the fortune-tellers and soothsayers who inhabited the area. During the early imperial era, under the reign of Emperor Caligula and later Nero, the plain at the foot of the hill was converted into a circus, a racetrack for chariots. It was known as the Circus of Nero, or the Circus Gaiae et Neronis. Adjacent to this circus, on the southern slope of the Vatican Hill, was a cemetery. This was not unusual. Roman law forbade the burial of the dead within the sacred boundary of the city, the Pomerium. As a result, all major roads leading out of Rome were lined with tombs and mausoleums, creating extensive necropolises. The Vatican necropolis was one such burial ground, active from the time of Augustus' 1st century AD through to the early 4th century. It was a city of the dead designed to mirror the city of the living, with narrow streets, family tombs, and elaborate mausoleums adorned with frescoes, mosaics, and inscriptions dedicated to gods and men. This was the final resting place for a cross-section of Roman society, from freedmen and civil servants to wealthy patrician families. The pivotal event that forever linked this ordinary Roman necropolis to world history was the Great Fire of Rome in AD 64. The fire devastated much of the city, and the unpopular Emperor Nero, seeking a scapegoat, found one in the nascent religious group known as Christians. Tacitus, the Roman historian, records the brutal persecution that followed. Christians were arrested, convicted not so much for arson but for hatred of the human race, and executed in elaborate and grotesque public spectacles. Many were crucified, sewn into the skins of wild beasts, and devoured by dogs, or set ablaze as human torches to illuminate Nero's gardens. According to strong and persistent tradition, among those martyred during this persecution was Simon Peter, a fisherman from Galilee and the chief apostle of Jesus Christ. The tradition holds that Peter was crucified, but, considering himself unworthy to die in the same manner as his Lord, requested to be crucified upside down. His execution, it is said, took place in the Circus of Nero before a bloodthirsty crowd. His body was then presumably buried nearby in the adjacent necropolis on the Vatican Hill. For the early Christians, themselves an outlawed and persecuted sect, the burial site of their leader became a place of immense, albeit secret, veneration. This belief, this unshakable tradition, would lie dormant for centuries, waiting to be unearthed. The fortunes of Christianity changed dramatically in the early 4th century with the Emperor Constantine. After his victory at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, which he attributed to the Christian god, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan in AD 313, granting tolerance to all religions within the empire and effectively ending the persecution of Christians. Eager to honor the faith he now embraced, Constantine embarked on an ambitious building program, constructing great basilicas over sites sacred to Christianity. The most important of these was the basilica dedicated to St. Peter, to be built directly over the apostle's supposed tomb. This decision presented a monumental engineering challenge. The slope of the Vatican Hill was too steep, and the necropolis, still an active cemetery for pagan Romans, lay directly in the path of his vision. To create a level foundation for the massive new church, Constantine's engineers undertook a staggering feat. They terraced the hill. The entire southern slope was systematically excavated and leveled. The upper portions of the mausoleums in the necropolis were dismantled, their roofs and walls broken down, and the hollow spaces filled with earth to create a solid, flat platform. In doing so, they effectively buried the ancient city of the dead, sealing it under 1,000,000 cubic meters of soil and rubble. The original ground level of the necropolis became the foundation for the new basilica's floor, and the revered tomb of Peter was encased in a marble and porphyry monument at the center of the new church, directly beneath the high altar. For over a millennium, the necropolis slept in darkness, its existence hinted at only by ancient texts and the unwavering tradition of the church. The next great chapter in the story began in the Renaissance. The Constantinian Basilica, after 1200 years, was falling into disrepair. Popes Nicholas V and Julius II conceived of and initiated its reconstruction, a project that would span over a century and involve the greatest artistic minds of the age, including Bramante, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Bernini. The new St. Peter's Basilica, as we know it today, was built on a grander scale and in a new architectural style. Crucially, its floor level was raised significantly above that of the old basilica. This created a crypto-like space between the new floor and the old Wana space that would later be known as the grottos, or the Vatican grottos. This area, a labyrinth of chapels and corridors, contains the tombs and sarcophagi of numerous popes, kings, and queens. But it is not the necropolis. It is an intermediate level, built partly within Constantine's filled-in foundation. For centuries, it was the deepest level known to exist beneath the basilica, and few had any reason to suspect that an entire world lay just meters below its floor. Whispers of what lay below persisted. However, during various construction and excavation projects over the centuries, workers would occasionally stumble upon fragments of ancient walls, pieces of decorated sarcophagi, or inscriptions. These finds were often dismissed as isolated curiosities, remnants of the old cemetery that were known to have been destroyed. The true nature and extent of the subterranean city remained completely unknown. The situation changed dramatically in the 20th century, setting the stage for a deliberate and scientific exploration. The catalyst was Pope Pius XI, a man of great learning and historical consciousness. He expressed a desire to be buried as close as possible to the first pope, St. Peter. To accommodate this wish, a project began in 1939 to excavate a burial space in the Vatican grottos, directly adjacent to the ancient wall that was believed to separate the grottos from the foundation of the Constantinian Basilica. As the workers dug, the ground beneath their tools gave way. Instead of solid earth, they found a void. Lowering a lamp into the darkness, they found themselves staring into a beautifully preserved ancient Roman tomb, its frescoed walls vibrant despite centuries of isolation. They had inadvertently broken into the long-lost Vatican necropolis. Pius XI died before the discovery, but his successor, Pope Pius XII, authorized a full-scale, secret archaeological excavation. The mission was incredibly sensitive, fraught with both theological and archaeological peril. The primary question was historical. Was the tradition about Peter's burial true? If they excavated and found nothing, it could potentially undermine a cornerstone of Catholic tradition. The engineering challenges were equally daunting. The excavation had to proceed directly beneath the main piers of Michelangelo's magnificent dome. Any misstep could compromise the structural integrity of the entire basilica. The chief archaeologist Monsignor Ludwig Kors and the two primary excavators, Antonio Ferrua and Enrico Josi, proceeded with extreme caution, shoring up the foundations of the basilica with massive concrete supports as they carefully inched their way through the ancient streets of the dead. What they uncovered over the next decade was nothing short of breathtaking. They found a perfectly preserved slice of ancient Rome. A narrow main street, the Via Cornelia, ran through the necropolis, flanked on both sides by a series of family tombs, or mausoleums. These were not simple graves. They were small, house-like structures, each with its own facade, dedicatory inscriptions, and often a small altar for offerings to the manes, the spirits of the dead. Inside, they were richly decorated. Frescoes depicted scenes from Greek and Roman mythology, Odysseus resisting the sirens, Hercules in his labors, as well as idyllic pastoral scenes and portraits of the deceased. Mosaics with geometric patterns and images of fruits and flowers covered the floors. Marble sarcophagi, some beautifully carved, filled the interiors. Inscriptions revealed the names of the families who owned them, the Valeri, the Cateni, the Tulli. It was a snapshot of Roman funerary culture, frozen in time by Constantine's engineers. The archaeologists meticulously cleared each mausoleum, moving from west to east. Following the ancient street, their ultimate goal lay at the western end of the necropolis, directly beneath the high altar of the basilica. Here, the arrangement of the tombs was different. The mausoleums curved around a small, open courtyard. At the center of this courtyard, against a red wall that was part of the original hillside, was a simple, humble monument. It was utterly unlike the lavish family tombs that surrounded it. It consisted of 2 small niches set into the wall, supported by 2 smaller columns and flanked by 2 larger ones. This structure was later enclosed by a small marble-faced edifice known as the edicula, built around AD 160 to 170. This was the trophy of Gaius, a monument referenced by a Christian priest named Gaius in a late 2nd century text, who wrote that he could show the trophies of the apostles Peter and Paul. Peter's being on the Vatican Hill, the excavators were certain they had found it. The evidence began to mount. The soil around the edicula was found to be heavily disturbed, suggesting it had been a focus of attention and veneration from a very early date. Most compellingly, the red wall next to the monument was covered in ancient graffiti. Among the countless scratches and inscriptions, one stood out. In Greek, it was crudely scratched into the plaster, Petros ini, Peter is within. Other graffiti included Christian symbols and prayers invoking Peter. The archaeological evidence powerfully corroborated the ancient tradition. This spot had been venerated as the tomb of the Apostle Peter since at least the middle of the 2nd century. But what of the bones? The excavation around the edicula revealed a complex history. The monument had been built over a simple, humble earth grave. Within that grave, the excavators found bones. However, the initial analysis was chaotic and methodologically flawed. The bones were found mixed with animal remains and were encrusted in the clay earth. They were collected haphazardly and stored away, not considered significant at the time. It seemed the physical proof of Peter's remains might be forever elusive. The world would have to wait for another 2 decades for the next astonishing revelation. The excavation was officially concluded in 1949, and Pope Pius XII announced the discovery in his Christmas radio message that year, declaring that the tomb of Peter had been found in a manner which we believe convincing, though he prudently avoided making a definitive statement on the bones. The necropolis was preserved, with its ancient streets and mausoleums carefully cleaned and restored. A new modern foundation was built to permanently secure the basilica above, and the necropolis was sealed once more, accessible only to a handful of scholars and specially guided tours. The public story seemed to be over, but privately, a mystery remained. The initial dismissal of the bones found near the edicula did not sit well with everyone, least of all with the woman who would spend the next decade solving the puzzle. The crucial work of piecing together the osteological puzzle fell to Dr. Margherita Guarducci, a renowned Italian archaeologist and epigrapher, an expert in ancient inscriptions. In the late 1950s, more than a decade after the initial excavation had ended, she became involved in studying the thousands of graffiti inscriptions from the area around the edicula. Her meticulous work provided even stronger textual evidence that this was indeed the venerated site of Peter's burial. But her most significant contribution began when she learned of the forgotten bones. During the original excavations, Monsignor Kaz, the administrator of the project, had been present when the workmen were clearing the earth from the interior of the edicula and the small hollow space behind it, known as the Graf, German for grave. Uncomfortable with the workmen handling any possible human remains, Kaz had personally collected any bone fragments he found into boxes and stored them away, separate from the larger cache of bones and artifacts that the archaeologists were cataloguing. These boxes were later mislabeled and essentially lost within the Vatican's storerooms. Guarducci, through her persistent investigation, tracked down these boxes. Inside one, she found the remains that had been recovered from the one place that mattered most, the earth directly beneath the edicula, the very center of the veneration. She took the bones to Professor Venerando Correnti, a leading anthropologist at the University of Palermo. The scientific analysis began. The bones were a jumble of fragments, but Correnti was able to piece together a startling story. The remains belonged to a single individual. They were the bones of a robust, muscular man who had died at an advanced age, likely between 60 and 70 years old. Crucially, there was no evidence of the feet or the lower leg bones. This was a detail of profound significance. The tradition of Peter's upside-down crucifixion offered a gruesome but logical explanation: to remove a body from a cross. The easiest method was to cut it down by severing the feet from the nails that held them. The absence of these bones could be interpreted as evidence consistent with the manner of his execution. Furthermore, the bones were found encased in precious, imperial purple dye and woven with gold threads. This indicated that whoever had wrapped these bones centuries before held them in the highest possible esteem, adorning them as one would the relics of a king or an emperor. The earth surrounding them was also of a different type than the local Vatican soil. It was a fine reddish clay, the same type of soil found on the Janiculum Hill across the Tiber, a known Christian burial area in ancient times. Carducci and Currenti theorized a sequence of events. After Peter's martyrdom, his body was hastily buried in the nearby necropolis. In the 2nd century, the edicula was constructed to mark the spot. Sometime later, perhaps during the construction of the Constantinian Basilica or during a period of persecution when relics were moved for safekeeping, the remains were temporarily transferred to the catacombs on the Janiculum Hill. They were later returned to their original resting place under the Vatican, now encased in the magnificent porphyry and marble monument, and reinterred with great honor in the small cavity behind the Red Wall and the edict. Pope Paul VI, after years of studying Carducci's extensive evidence and Currenti's scientific reports, was convinced. On June 26, 1968, at the conclusion of the Year of Faith, he made a momentous announcement. He declared that the relics of St. Peter had been identified in a way which we believe convincing. The bones were placed in acrylic containers and returned to their original resting place in the niche behind the edicula, where they remain today, visible to those few who are granted access to the necropolis. Not all scholars, including some of the original excavators, fully accepted Carducci's conclusions, citing the initial Huinland confusion of the excavation and the lack of clear chain of custody for the bones. The debate among archaeologists continues, but the official position of the Catholic Church, supported by a significant body of evidence, is that the tomb and the relics of its first pope have been found. The confirmation of Peter's tomb is the central, documented story of the Vatican's depths, but it is far from the only one. The existence of this vast underground world has naturally given rise to a multitude of other theories and legends, weaving a layer of modern myth over the ancient archaeology. The most persistent of these is the idea of a vast secret archive of knowledge hidden away in tunnels that stretch far beyond the confines of the necropolis. This speculation often centers on the Vatican's secret archives. While the name suggests mystery, its secret designation originally meant private or personal. From the Latin secretum, meaning private, it is the Pope's personal library and the central repository for all the acts of the Holy See and its diplomatic correspondence. It holds miles of shelving containing millions of documents, some dating back over a millennium. While most of its contents are meticulously catalogued and increasingly available to qualified researchers, its sheer scale and the small fraction of documents that remain classified fuel imaginations. Conspiracy theorists propose that deep within its vaults, or in tunnels even further below, lies everything from the lost treasure of the Knights Templar and the true history of human origins, to advanced alien technology and documents proving the Church's cover-up of everything from the true life of Jesus to extraterrestrial contact. Another strand of legend involves the Passetto di Borgo, a known above-ground fortified corridor that connects the Vatican Palace with the Castel Sant'Angelo. This elevated tunnel, built in the 13th century and strengthened by various popes, served as a literal escape route for pontiffs in times of danger, most notably for Pope Clement VII. During the sack of Rome in 1527, the existence of this known secret passage begs the question: if there is one, could there be others? Stories persist of tunnels that run even deeper, connecting the Vatican to other key sites in Rome, such as the headquarters of the Jesuit order, the Chiesa del, or even ancient pagan sites like the Mithraeum beneath the Basilica of San Clemente. The myth of the Illuminati and other secret societies is also frequently intertwined with these tales. The idea that a shadowy cabal, perhaps operating from within or in alliance with the Church, pulls the strings of global events from a hidden Vatican bunker is a staple of popular fiction and conspiracy lore. These stories are often grafted onto the very real and very strange history of the Vatican during World War II. The complex role of Pope Pius XII, accused by some of silence during the Holocaust, while simultaneously praised by others for secretly harboring Jews and resistance fighters within the Vatican walls, adds a layer of historical intrigue. Were there hidden tunnels used to spirit refugees to safety? It's plausible. Were they used for more nefarious purposes, like hiding Nazi gold or war criminals? The speculation continues, though concrete evidence remains elusive. Beyond conspiracy, the underground spaces hold more tangible, if less sensational, secrets. The Scavi, as the necropolis is officially known, is not the only subterranean layer. Below it lies a deeper, more mysterious level, the pre-Constantinian stratum. Before the necropolis, before the circus, the Vatican Hill was simply a hill. Excavations have revealed evidence of even earlier structures. Walls from simple homes, agricultural terraces and pottery shards dating back to the Etruscan and early Republican periods of Rome. There are also natural geological features, caves and springs that were likely sites of pagan worship long before the first Christian martyr arrived. The hill is a geological and archaeological palimpsest, with each era building upon and erasing the one before it. The Vatican also sits atop a complex aquifer system. Ancient springs and underground rivers flow beneath the city-state. Managing this water has been a constant engineering challenge for centuries. There are cisterns, drainage channels, and aqueducts, both ancient and modern, weaving a web of functional tunnels whose maps are closely guarded for security reasons. In a place built layer upon layer over 2,000 years, the line between an ancient drainage culvert and a secret tunnel can be very thin, providing fertile ground for speculation. The practical modern-day reality of the Vatican's underground is one of immense complexity. It is a living city with all the necessary infrastructure: power lines, fiber optic cables for communications, plumbing, heating, and ventilation systems. There are storage rooms, workshops, and secure vaults for the Vatican's immense art collection and financial assets. There is even a small railway station, built in 1932, with a tunnel that connects to the Italian rail network at the nearby Roma San Pietro station, used primarily for freight. This functional underworld is constantly being updated and maintained, a necessary endeavor that sometimes leads to new, unexpected archaeological discoveries, each of which must be carefully handled by the Vatican's team of archaeologists. The governance and conservation of this subterranean world fall to a unique and dedicated body within the Vatican city-state, the Fabbrica di San Pietro, an institution older than the basilica itself, was established by Pope Julius II in 1506 to oversee the construction of the new St. Peter's. Today, its responsibilities have evolved to include the perpetual maintenance, preservation, and restoration of the entire basilica complex. From the top of the dome to the deepest foundations, it is the Fabbrica, through its team of architects, engineers, and art restorers, that holds the keys to the underground, balancing the needs of a functioning pilgrimage site with the immense responsibility of protecting its archaeological and historical heart. The Pontifical Commission for Sacred Archaeology, founded in 1852 by Pope Pius IX, also plays a crucial role. While its primary focus is on the catacombs that ring the city of Rome, its expertise is essential for any subterranean discovery within the Vatican. Any work that disturbs the ground beneath the tiny city-state is undertaken with extreme caution and under archaeological supervision. The Vatican is not just a church. It is one of the most significant historical sites in the world, and every shovel of earth turned could reveal a new piece of the puzzle. Access to the Scavi, the necropolis beneath the basilica, is one of the most exclusive invitations in the world. It is not a tourist attraction. Only a very limited number of visitors, typically around 250 per day, are allowed to enter, and they must apply for permission weeks or even months in advance. Tours are conducted in small groups led by official Vatican guides, often seminarians or scholars with a deep knowledge of the site. The route is carefully controlled, winding through the narrow, climate-controlled streets of the ancient necropolis. Visitors can peer into the beautifully restored mausoleums, see the vibrant frescoes of pagan gods, and finally stand before the simple, powerful sight of the edicula and the Red Wall, now protected by a plexiglass screen. It is a profoundly moving experience for many, a tangible connection to the very origins of their faith. The atmosphere is one of hushed reverence, a stark contrast to the bustling grandeur of the basilica above. It is here, in the silence of the earth, that the weight of 2 millennia of history feels most immediate. The environmental conditions in the necropolis are meticulously managed. Constant temperature and humidity levels are maintained to prevent the deterioration of the ancient stucco, frescoes, and mosaics. Special lighting minimizes exposure to harmful UV rays. The preservation of this time capsule is a constant and delicate scientific endeavor. The same care extends to the grottos above, where the air is still and the light is dim, preserving the centuries-old stone and fabric of the papal tombs. Beyond the officially sanctioned areas, the concept of access becomes a matter of intense speculation and rumor. The existence of the Vatican's secret archives is well known, and qualified academics can indeed gain access to its reading rooms after a rigorous application process. However, the deepest vaults and storage areas, which reportedly extend underground, are off-limits to all but a handful of curators and archivists. What lies in those sealed sections? The Church maintains it is simply more of the same. Historical documents, papal ledgers, and diplomatic correspondence that are either not yet catalogued or are too fragile to be handled. The conspiracy theorist, of course, believes otherwise. The truth is likely mundane in content, but breathtaking in its historical scope, potentially containing unpublished letters of medieval popes, lost works of literature, or detailed records that could rewrite minor chapters of history. But the idea that it holds world-shattering secrets of an extraterrestrial or supernatural nature remains firmly in the realm of fiction. The rumors of deeper, more secret tunnels are harder to dispel because they are, to a degree, based on truth. The Vatican Hill is honeycombed with structures from different eras. During the Cold War, like many world governments, the Vatican reportedly constructed or reinforced nuclear fallout shelters. It is plausible that there are secure areas, bunkers, and tunnels known only to the highest levels of the Swiss Guard and the Vatican security apparatus. Their purpose would be practical: security, emergency preparedness, and the protection of the Pope and the irreplaceable artifacts in his care. These would not be tunnels to ancient alien lairs, but rather modern, reinforced concrete corridors, functional and secret for reasons of state security. The ongoing work of archaeology and preservation means that the story of the Vatican's hidden tunnels is not yet complete. Every renovation project, whether for updating infrastructure or repairing a leaking pipe, has the potential to reveal something new. In the 1990s, during construction work for a new parking lot, workers uncovered a 1st-century Roman villa with well-preserved mosaics. More recently, during excavations for a new ventilation system, archaeologists discovered an ancient Roman kill. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of what the Vatican Hill was like before it became the center of the Catholic world. One of the most fascinating ongoing debates concerns the precise location and extent of the Processus of Nero. While the obelisk that now stands in St. Peter's Square was once the centerpiece of the circus's spina, the central divider around which the chariots raced, the exact boundaries of the massive structure are still not fully mapped. It is believed that the circus's starting gates, carcers, were at the far end of what is now the Via della Conciliazione, and its curved end curva was near the present-day sacristy of the basilica. Some theories suggest that parts of the circus's substructures might still exist, incorporated into the foundations of later buildings or still buried, untouched, awaiting discovery. Finding a definitive section of the circus walls would be a monumental archaeological achievement, further clarifying the historical context of Peter's martyrdom. The future will undoubtedly bring new technologies to bear on these mysteries. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR, LiDAR scanning, and other non-invasive remote sensing techniques could, in theory, be used to map the subterranean structures without ever breaking ground. However, the complex, multi-layered nature of the site, filled with modern infrastructure and the immense density of the basilica's foundations, makes such scans extremely difficult to interpret. Furthermore, the Vatican may be hesitant to employ such technologies widely, not out of a desire to hide secrets, but out of a respect for the sanctity of the site and a preference for the careful, methodical approach of traditional archaeology. When it is absolutely necessary to dig, the hidden tunnels beneath the Vatican, therefore, exist in a dual state. There is the physical reality, the breathtakingly preserved Roman necropolis, the functional grottos, the modern infrastructure, and the secure archives. This reality is complex enough, a testament to 2,000 years of continuous history, construction, faith, and scholarship. Then there is the mythological realm, the world of conspiracy theories. imagined vast libraries of forbidden knowledge, and tunnels to every corner of Rome. This mythological realm is powered by the Vatican's inherent aura of mystery, its history of secrecy, and the human desire for there to be more to the world than meets the eye. The true power of the Vatican's underworld lies in this intersection of fact and faith, history and legend. It is a place where archaeology and theology meet, where a scientist's trowel can unearth evidence that resonates with the faith of billions. The discovery of the necropolis and the identification of Peter's tomb provide a historical anchor for a religion built on historical events. Whether one accepts the findings as conclusive or not, the endeavor itself demonstrates a profound engagement with history. The tunnels, both real and imagined, force us to confront the layers of our own past, reminding us that beneath the surface of our most revered institutions lie the stories, the bones, and the dust of the people who came before us. The silence beneath St. Peter's is not an empty silence. It is a silence filled with whispers of emperors and martyrs, popes and pilgrims, archaeologists and conspirators, a continuous, echoing narrative of human belief and endeavor. The journey through the Vatican's hidden depths culminates not in a single revelation, but in a deeper appreciation for the multifaceted nature of truth itself. The tunnels, chambers, and necropolises are more than just archaeological sites or architectural features. They are a physical manifestation of the Catholic Church's long memory and its complex relationship with its own history. To understand them is to understand how the past is continuously interpreted, preserved, and sometimes hidden, to serve the needs of the present. The legacy of the Scavi excavation is a perfect example of this complex interplay. For the faithful, the discovery provides tangible, scientific affirmation of a sacred tradition. It transforms Peter from a purely theological figure into a historical one, a man who lived, preached, died, and was buried in a specific place that can be visited today. This physical connection strengthens the foundation of the papacy and the Church itself, rooting its spiritual authority in historical soil. The bones identified by Garducci are, for believers, a sacred relic of unparalleled importance, a direct link to the apostle and to Christ. For the historian and the archaeologist, however, the same site tells a slightly different, though no less compelling, story. It is a story of meticulous detective work, of sifting through earth and evidence to reconstruct the past. The debates surrounding the bones, the initial mishandling, Garducci's interpretation, the ongoing scholarly skepticism, is not a weakness but a strength of the historical method. It demonstrates the rigorous, self-correcting process of inquiry that defines academia. The Vatican necropolis itself, irrespective of Peter's connection, remains an archaeological treasure of immense value. Its pristine preservation offers an unparalleled window into the funerary practices, art, and daily life of non-elite Romans in the 1st through 3rd centuries AD. The vibrant frescoes and poignant epitaphs speak of a people who, though pagan, shared universal human hopes and fears about death and the afterlife. This duality of perspective is central to the entire narrative. The real secret of the Vatican's tunnels may be that they can hold multiple simultaneous truths: the truth of faith and the truth of science, the truth of history and the truth of legend. They do not necessarily cancel each other out. Rather, they coexist in the same subterranean space. The management of this heritage is an enormous responsibility facing the modern Vatican. The challenges are myriad: environmental control to prevent the decay of ancient artifacts, structural engineering to ensure the basilica above does not settle into the voids below, and security to protect both the faithful and the priceless historical assets. Furthermore, there is the challenge of transparency. In an age that demands openness, the Vatican must balance its legitimate need for privacy and security with a growing expectation to share its cultural and historical wealth with the world. The greatly expanded access granted to scholars in the secret archives in recent decades is a step in this direction, as are the increasingly available virtual tours of the Sistine Chapel and other landmarks. Perhaps one day, advanced 3D scanning technology will allow for a fully immersive virtual tour of the Scavi itself, making its wonders accessible to all without jeopardizing its preservation. The legends and conspiracy theories, while often frustrating to historians, also serve a purpose. They are a testament to the enduring power and mystery of the Vatican as an institution. In a world that often feels too explained and mapped, The idea that there are still secrets hidden beneath the world's smallest state is inherently captivating. These stories, however outlandish, keep the history of the Vatican alive in the popular imagination, inspiring books, films, and video games that, while fictional, often lead people to investigate the real history behind the myth. Ultimately, the hidden tunnels beneath the Vatican are a mirror. They reflect our own desires for evidence to support our faith, for secrets to be revealed, for history to be uncovered and understood. They show us the painstaking work of archaeologists and the fervent passion of believers. They contain the solemn beauty of ancient Roman art and the cold, functional reality of modern infrastructure. They hold the documented archival truth of centuries of diplomacy and the whispered, unproven tales of hidden treasures. To stand in the scavy, before the simple red wall and the graffiti that proclaims Peter is within, is to stand at a crossroads of human history. It is a place where the ancient Roman world, with its gods and its empires, directly gave way to the Christian world that would shape the next 2 millennia. The tunnels are the physical proof of that transition, a transition built literally layer upon layer. The pagan mausoleums were buried to make way for the Christian basilica, which in turn was built upon the belief that a simple fisherman's tomb was the most sacred site on earth. The story of these hidden depths is therefore never truly finished. Each generation brings new tools, new questions, and new perspectives to bear on this unique place. New discoveries may still be waiting in the next unexplored cavity or in the next re-examined document. The ongoing dialogue between faith and science, between secrecy and transparency, between historical fact and living tradition ensures that the narrative will continue to evolve. In the end, the greatest secret the Vatican's tunnels hold is not a hidden relic or a lost manuscript. It is the profound and enduring human need to find meaning, to connect with the past, and to believe in something greater than ourselves. Whether one enters these depths as a pilgrim, a scholar, or simply a curious soul, they emerge with a deeper understanding of the countless layers of earth, of history, and of belief that form the foundation of our world. The silence beneath the marble and gold of St. Peter's is a repository of whispers from the past. And if we listen closely, they tell the story of us all. The challenge of preserving this layered history is a constant and delicate operation, one that requires a harmonious blend of cutting-edge science and ancient tradition. The Vatican's team of restorers and engineers operates under principles that would be familiar to their Renaissance predecessors: patience, precision, and a profound respect for the material they are handling. However, their tools are decidedly modern. Climate control systems maintain a constant humidity level to prevent ancient plaster from cracking or mold. From forming on 2,000-year-old frescoes, non-invasive techniques like 3D laser scanning are used to create millimeter-perfect digital models of the necropolis, allowing for detailed study without risking damage to the fragile originals. These models are invaluable, not just for research, but for creating virtual experiences that could one day allow a wider audience to explore this otherwise inaccessible world. Every decision, from reinforcing a wall to installing a new wire, is made with the knowledge that the integrity of the entire basilica above depends on the stability of the world below. It is a perpetual dance between the past and the present, where a single misstep could erase irreplaceable history. This responsibility extends to the very atmosphere of the underground chambers. The air in the scavy is carefully filtered and monitored. The exhalations of visitors, carrying moisture and carbon dioxide, can slowly degrade pigments and stone. The number of visitors is therefore not just a matter of exclusivity, but of pure conservation. The light levels are kept low, with specialized bulbs that emit minimal heat and no ultraviolet radiation, preventing the vibrant ochreous reds and blues of the Roman frescoes from fading back into the darkness from which they were so recently reclaimed. The silence enforced within the tours is not merely for reverence. It is to prevent sound vibrations from disturbing the delicate equilibrium of the environment. In this way, the Vatican's approach to its hidden tunnels is a masterclass in preservation, demonstrating that to protect history, one must sometimes shield it from the very attention it attracts. Beyond the scientific challenges, there lies a deeper, more philosophical dilemma: how to reconcile the ongoing work of archaeology with the living, breathing faith that this site represents. For the Catholic Church, the scavy is not an archaeological site in the traditional sense. It is a shrine, the confirmed tomb of its first pope. This shapes every aspect of its management. Excavation is not pursued for mere curiosity's sake. The primary goal of the 1939 dig was not to discover a necropolis, but to fulfill a pope's dying wish to be buried near Peter. Any future exploration would be undertaken only if necessary for structural reasons, or if it promised to further illuminate the central story of Peter's presence. The Church has little incentive to go digging for purely historical purposes, as the risk of damaging the sacred site or uncovering information that could complicate the existing narrative is too great. This is not secrecy in the conspiratorial sense, but a form of theological and historical conservation, a desire to protect a foundational truth from becoming a mere subject of academic debate. This cautious approach inevitably fuels further speculation. If the official excavations stopped at the necropolis level, what might lie further down? The pre-Constantinian stratum, the level of the original hill itself, remains largely unexplored. What traces of the earliest Christian community might be hidden there? Could there be evidence of the very first makeshift shrine built by Peter's followers before the edicula was constructed? Or perhaps evidence of the circus of Nero itself, foundations of the starting gates, fragments of the turning posts, or even the ghostly imprint of the track? The potential for discovery is immense, but so is the potential for disruption. To excavate deeper would require dismantling parts of the necropolis, a price the Vatican is unwilling to pay. For now, these deeper layers guard their secrets, leaving room for imagination and for future generations with more advanced, less invasive technologies to perhaps one day peer into the earth without disturbing it. The human element of this story remains as compelling as the archaeological one. The modern-day guardians of this underground realm, the archaeologists of the Fabrica, the archivists, the Swiss guards who stand watch at its entrances, the latest in a long line of custodians. They are the inheritors of a tradition that stretches back to the first Christians who secretly venerated a simple grave. They are the silent witnesses to the constant flow of history, tasked with a duty that transcends their individual lifetimes. Their work is often mundane, reviewing environmental data logs, checking the structural integrity of a beam, painstakingly cataloguing a new fragment of pottery. Yet, they are acutely aware that they are protecting something far greater than themselves. They work in the knowledge that they are a living link in an unbroken chain, ensuring that the whispers from the past are not silenced, but preserved for the whispers of the future. The narrative of the Vatican's underground is also inextricably linked to the flow of water. The Tiber River, which has shaped Roman history for millennia, continues to exert its influence from below. The Vatican Hill is crisscrossed with ancient springs and underground streams, a hydrological reality that has posed both a threat and an opportunity. In antiquity, these water sources were likely incorporated into the necropolis, perhaps for funerary rites or as part of the decorative elements of the tombs. Later, during the construction of the massive basilica, managing this water was a critical engineering challenge. Constantine's architects had to devise sophisticated drainage systems to channel water away from the foundations, systems that are still partially functional today. In the modern era, the threat of flooding remains a very real concern. The same aquifers that fed the ancient springs still swell after heavy rains, pressing against the foundations of the basilica and seeping into the lowest levels. The Grotte Vecchi, the oldest parts of the Vatican grottos, are particularly susceptible to dampness, a constant battle for conservators. This ongoing dialogue with water adds another layer of complexity to the preservation efforts. It is a reminder that the Vatican's stability is not just a matter of balancing stone upon stone, but also of negotiating with the invisible elemental forces that have shaped the land long before any human set foot upon it. Some conspiracy theorists have even seized upon this, suggesting that periodic pumping operations are actually a cover for secret activities, when in reality they are a vital, if unglamorous, part of keeping the past from literally being washed away. The role of the underground extends into the very practical, day-to-day functioning of the world's smallest independent state. Beyond the historical and sacred spaces lies a functional underworld that keeps the Vatican City operational. There are maintenance tunnels wide enough for small vehicles, carrying supplies from one end of the state to the other, without disturbing the sanctity of the surface. There are modern archives storing millions of digital and paper records not deemed ancient enough for the secret archives, but essential for the bureaucracy of a global institution. There are secure vaults, not for mythical treasure, but for the Church's actual art collection, countless paintings, sculptures, and tapestries not currently on display, rotated for preservation and study. Perhaps most intriguingly, there is the Vatican's own power station and data center. In an effort to become more self-sufficient and secure, the city-state has invested in its own infrastructure, much of which is located underground. Fiber optic cables carrying the Vatican's digital communications, its emails, its financial transactions, its radio broadcasts run through dedicated utility tunnels. This creates a fascinating juxtaposition. Next to a tunnel that may have been walked by a Renaissance pope or an ancient Roman mourner, there may be a conduit carrying the very data that facilitates the Church's mission in the 21st century. This blending of the ancient and the ultra-modern is one of the defining characteristics of the Vatican's relationship with its subsurface. It is not a museum frozen in time. It is a living organism, and its roots are constantly being fed by the necessities of the present. The very nature of this ongoing use means that new discoveries are not confined to the distant past. In 2003, during renovations to a parking lot, workers uncovered a stunning 1st century Roman necropolis, separate from the scavi under the basilica. The Autoparco necropolis contained a beautifully preserved columbarium, a tomb with niches for urns, and a marble sarcophagus, revealing that the Vatican Hill was even more densely populated with the dead than previously thought. Such finds are a humbling reminder that our understanding of this small patch of earth is still incomplete. Each shovel of turned earth has the potential to rewrite a small piece of history, to add another family's story to the grand narrative, and to prove that the map of the Vatican's underground is never fully complete. It is a testament to the fact that the city-state, for all its global influence, still has secrets left to reveal from its own soil. The spiritual significance of the underground world extends beyond the tomb of St. Peter. Throughout the Vatican grottos, the atmosphere is one of palpable sanctity and remembrance. This level, nestled between the great basilica above and the ancient necropolis below, serves as a sacred bridge through time. Here, in the soft glow of votive lights, lie the tombs and memorials of numerous popes, monarchs, and cardinals. Each sarcophagus and plaque tells a story of leadership, service, and the endless flow of church history. The air is still and cool, carrying the faint scent of wax and aged stone. For many pilgrims, reaching out to touch the tomb of a beloved Pope John Paul II or a John the 23rd is a profound moment of connection, a tangible link to a pontificate they lived through and cherished. This level, though less ancient than the scavi below, is where the living tradition of the Church actively engages with its recent past, honoring the men who have guided it through modern triumphs and tribulations. The management of this sacred space involves its own unique rituals and protocols. The transfer of a Pope's body from its initial resting place to its final tomb in the grottos is a ceremony steeped in tradition and discretion, often taking place during the quiet hours of the night. The exact location of each tomb is chosen with care, sometimes following the specific wishes of the deceased pontiff himself. The Swiss Guard in their iconic uniforms are not merely ceremonial figures here. They are the silent, vigilant protectors of this sacred sleep. Their presence, a reminder that the Vatican's security is as much about guarding memory as it is about protecting physical assets. The grottos, therefore, are not a static museum exhibit, but a living, evolving mausoleum that continues to receive new inhabitants, each edition weaving another thread into the rich tapestry of the Church's history. The influence of the hidden tunnels extends metaphorically into the very heart of Vatican administration. The term underground often carries connotations of secrecy, and indeed, the Vatican's diplomatic and bureaucratic machinery is renowned for its discretion. The complex processes of papal elections, the delicate negotiations of concordats with nations, and the internal deliberations of the Curia are often described as occurring in the corridors of power, a phrase that takes on a literal meaning in a city built on top of actual corridors. This culture of confidentiality, necessary for the operation of a sovereign state and a global religious leader, inevitably feeds the external perception of the Vatican as an enigma. The real, physical labyrinth beneath the surface becomes a powerful symbol for the intricate, and often opaque, pathways of Vatican governance and diplomacy. It is a place where decisions are made away from the public eye, where history is not just studied but made. This aura of secrecy naturally attracts those who seek answers to history's great unsolved mysteries. Theorists often ask, could the tunnels hold clues to the fate of the lost library of Alexandria, or fragments of the Qumran Dead Sea Scrolls that were never released? What about documents from the trial of the Knights Templar? The Vatican's vast holdings make it a logical focal point for such speculation, while scholars dismiss these ideas as fanciful, pointing to the meticulous, if slow work of archivists. The mere possibility is enough to sustain decades of conjecture. The physical inaccessibility of the deepest archives allows the myths to flourish, creating a feedback loop where the Church's natural caution in managing its sensitive materials is interpreted by outsiders as confirmation that earth-shattering secrets are being withheld. Yet, for every tale of conspiracy, there is a quieter, more human story. During World War II, the Vatican's extensive properties, including likely some of its lesser-known underground spaces, became a refuge for thousands of Jews and other refugees fleeing Nazi persecution. While the full extent of these efforts may never be known, testimonies speak of people being hidden in storerooms, extra convent rooms, and within the Vatican itself. This humanitarian use of the city as hidden spaces represents their highest purpose, not as a vault for secrets, but as a sanctuary for the vulnerable. This chapter of history adds a layer of moral courage to the narrative of the underground, proving that these spaces of shadow can be used to protect light and life in the face of overwhelming darkness. Looking to the future, the question of what happens next beneath the Vatican is as much about technology as it is about tradition. The development of non-invasive exploration tools, wand tomography, which uses cosmic rays to map dense structures, or advanced ground-penetrating radar with a U-assisted interpretation, may eventually allow researchers to create a comprehensive 3D map of the entire subsurface without drilling a single hole. This would be a revolutionary development, potentially revealing the full layout of the Circus of Nero, pinpointing unexplored cavities, and finally putting to rest or confirming many of the lingering questions about the hill's structure. However, the ethical and theological implications of such virtual exploration would be significant. Would the Church be comfortable with a complete, transparent map of its most sacred ground? Or does some mystery need to be preserved to protect the sanctity of the site? The future guardians of the Vatican's depths will have to navigate these questions, balancing an insatiable human curiosity with a timeless duty to protect the sacred. The artistic legacy buried beneath the Vatican is a palimpsest of changing styles and beliefs, offering a unique timeline of Western art hidden from the sun. The necropolis itself is a stunning gallery of Roman funerary art. The frescoes and mosaics within the pagan mausoleums are not merely decorative. They are a window into the Roman psyche. Images of peacocks symbolize immortality. Scenes of banquets hope for eternal happiness. The god Mercury, as psychopomp, guides the souls of the dead to the afterlife. This art is vibrant, confident, and deeply rooted in its classical tradition. Then, directly superimposed upon this layer, is the art of the Constantinian Basilica, the grand, formal beginnings of Christian artistic expression, now mostly lost, but hinted at in fragments. Centuries later, the Renaissance popes built their new basilica, and with it, the grottos began to fill with a new style of art, the sarcophagi and monuments of the popes. This marks a shift from the collective family tombs of the Romans to the glorification of the individual leader, each tomb a masterpiece of sculpture from its respective era. From the serene elegance of the Renaissance to the dramatic intensity of the Baroque, the underground, therefore, holds a continuous, unbroken art-historical narrative. A visitor moving from the necropolis to the grottos physically walks through time, witnessing the evolution of artistic expression from pagan Rome to the early Christian period, through the Renaissance and into the modern day, all within a few meters of vertical space. It is an art historian's dream, a condensed physical timeline of 2 millennia of artistic endeavor, all protected from the elements and the wear of time. The logistical challenges of conserving this art are immense. A fresco painted on a wall in the 1st century AD was never intended to last 2 millennia, especially after being buried in damp earth for over 1,000 years. The conservation efforts are a race against time and chemistry. Salt efflorescence, where minerals leach through the plaster and crystallize on the surface, can literally push the paint off the wall. Microbiological growth fungi and bacteria thrives in the dark and can slowly eat away at the organic binders in the paint. Conservators must work with the delicacy of surgeons, using microscopes and microapplicators to consolidate flaking pigment, inject adhesives behind unstable plaster, and carefully clean centuries of grime without damaging the original work. It is painstaking, slow, and expensive work, but it is essential. Every square centimeter saved is a victory. preserving not just an image, but a thought, a prayer, and a piece of humanity's story for future generations. The human stories embedded in these underground spaces are often overlooked in favor of grand narratives of popes and apostles, yet they are equally compelling. The inscriptions in the necropolis speak of personal loss and love. A freedman commemorates his wife and children. A soldier notes his career and his hope for a peaceful afterlife. These are the voices of ordinary people, forever memorialized in the stone beneath the world's most famous church. Their hopes for remembrance have been fulfilled beyond their wildest dreams, though not in a way they could have ever imagined. Similarly, the grottos hold the stories of the modern era. The tomb of Queen Christina of Sweden, who abdicated her throne to convert to Catholicism, tells a story of dramatic personal faith. The simple slab of Pope John Paul I, who reigned for only 33 days, speaks to the unpredictability of history. Each person buried here brought their own unique story to this sacred ground, contributing to the complex, human tapestry of the Vatican. The very geology of the Vatican Hill is a silent character in this story. The hill itself is composed of Pleistocene-era sediments, sand and clay deposited over millennia. This soft, unstable ground is part of the reason why the construction of the basilica was such a monumental feat, and why its foundations require constant monitoring. The ancient Romans built their tombs directly into this hillside, carving out niches and using local tufa stone. This interaction between human ambition and geological reality is a constant theme. The hill has dictated the terms of every construction project, from the first tomb to the latest reinforcement beam. It is a reminder that all human history, no matter how grand, is ultimately subject to the forces of the natural world. The tunnels are not just in the earth, they are a dialogue with the earth, a negotiation between human permanence and geological reality. Finally, the silent witnesses to all of this history are the countless artifacts that will never be displayed in a museum. The soil of the Vatican, sifted by archaeologists, has yielded a mountain of small finds. Coins that dropped from the purses of mourners, fragments of glass from funerary urns, nails from sandals, and bits of jewelry. These mundane objects are the echoes of daily life. A child's toy found in the necropolis speaks of a family visiting a grave. A cooking pot shard might be from a meal shared as part of a funerary rite. These artifacts may lack the grandeur of a papal tomb or the theological weight of Peter's relics, but they are no less important. They ground the grand narrative in human experience, reminding us that the history of the Vatican is not just a story of faith and power, but also a story of people. People who loved, grieved, built, and remembered just as we do today. Their silent testimony, buried for centuries, continues to be the most humble and profound secret the Vatican's earth has to give. The very existence of such an extensive underground complex raises profound questions about the nature of secrecy and knowledge within the Church. The Vatican archives, often dubbed the Pope's Closet, hold an estimated 53 miles of shelving, containing documents that span a millennium. While the term secret originally meant private, the archive's inaccessibility to the general public has long fueled speculation about what it might conceal. In recent decades, the Vatican has made significant efforts to demystify its holdings, opening up vast sections to qualified researchers. Thousands of documents from the pontificate of Pius XII, for instance, have been made available, allowing historians to construct a more nuanced understanding of the Vatican's role during World War II. This slow, careful process of opening the archives is itself a kind of archaeological digger, sifting through layers of paper and ink to uncover historical truth. Yet the sheer volume of material means that total transparency is an impossible goal. For every file that is catalogued and made available, countless others await review. The process is meticulous and slow, hampered by the fragile nature of ancient parchment and the need for expert translation and contextualization. This necessary delay perpetuates the mystery. It allows space for theories to flourish about what might be hidden in the unseen stacks, perhaps evidence of extraterrestrial life, as some fringe theorists claim, or definitive proof about the identity of the Mona Lisa. The reality is almost certainly more mundane but no less historically significant. Unpublished letters, detailed financial records, and diplomatic correspondence that could shed light on the inner workings of the Church during pivotal moments in history. The archive's true secret is not one of dramatic concealment, but of overwhelming abundancy, ocean of information so vast that it can never be fully explored. The architectural evolution of the Vatican's underground is a mirror of the Church's changing priorities and fears. The Renaissance-era Passetto di Borgo was built for swift, physical escape from danger. The Cold War-era bunkers, rumored to exist, were designed for survival in a nuclear conflict. Today, the threats are more likely to be digital. Consequently, the most secure underground spaces may now be virtual, hardened server farms and cybersecurity centers, protecting the Vatican's digital infrastructure from hackers and cyber attacks. The nature of what is hidden and protected has evolved from physical treasures and fleeing popes to data and information. This shift adds a new, invisible layer to the concept of the Vatican's secrets. The most important vaults may no longer be behind ancient walls, but behind layers of encryption and firewalls, protecting the institution's ability to operate in the modern world. The psychological impact of working in this environment cannot be overstated. The archivists, archaeologists, and guards who spend their days in the silent, dimly lit world beneath the basilica often speak of a unique sense of responsibility. They are not just employees, they are stewards. There is a palpable weight to the history that surrounds them, a feeling of being a small part of a story that is much larger than any individual. For the archaeologists, every speck of dirt holds potential meaning. For the archivists, every faded line of Latin script could change a historical understanding. This daily intimacy with the past fosters a deep, quiet dedication. It is a vocation that requires a special temperament, one that is comfortable with silence, patience, and the knowledge that much of what they do and see will never be known or applauded by the outside world. They are the guardians of the silence, the keepers of the whispers. Ultimately, the hidden tunnels of the Vatican serve as the ultimate metaphor for the human journey for understanding. We are all, in a sense, archaeologists of our own lives in history, sifting through layers of experience, tradition, and evidence to construct a coherent narrative. The Vatican's subterranean world is a physical manifestation of this quest. It represents the parts of our history that are buried, forgotten, or intentionally set aside. It holds the uncomfortable truths alongside the cherished traditions, the pagan past under the Christian present, the messy realities of power alongside the pure ideals of faith. The story it tells is not simple or linear. It is complex, contested, and multifaceted. It invites us to question, to explore, and to wonder. It reminds us that history is not a single truth, but a collection of interwoven stories, and that the most solid foundations are often built upon layers of mystery. The tunnels beneath the Vatican, therefore, do not belong solely to the Church or to historians. They are a part of world heritage, a powerful symbol of the endless human endeavor to find meaning in the past, to navigate the complexities of the present, and to preserve a legacy for the future. They are a reminder that beneath the surface of any great institution, any ancient city, or any human life, there are always deeper layers waiting to be understood. The future of exploration beneath the Vatican will inevitably be shaped by emerging technologies that allow us to see without disturbing. Ground-penetrating radar GPR has already been used with some success to map known structures, but its effectiveness is limited by the complex, multi-layered nature of the site and the overwhelming signal noise from modern infrastructure. The next generation of sensing technology, however, holds extraordinary promise. Muon tomography, a technique that uses cosmic rays to create X-ray-like images of dense structures, could potentially map the entire subsurface in astonishing detail. This technology has been used to peer inside pyramids and volcanoes, and its application at the Vatican could reveal the full extent of the Circus of Nero, identify unknown cavities, and create a definitive digital model of every ancient wall and foundation. Artificial intelligence could then be employed to analyze these scans, distinguishing between natural geological formations, modern utilities, and man-made structures of archaeological significance. This non-invasive approach would allow scholars to excavate digitally, preserving the physical sanctity of the site while satisfying the thirst for knowledge. However, this technological frontier presents its own ethical and theological dilemmas. Would the Church welcome a complete and transparent 3D model of the ground beneath St. Peter's, including the area directly around the traditional tomb of Peter? While such a model could answer lingering questions, it could also raise new ones or even reveal inconsistencies that challenge long-held beliefs. There is a valid argument for preserving a degree of mystery, for allowing faith and tradition to exist in a space not entirely subject to empirical measurement. The decision of how to employ these powerful new tools will be a delicate balancing act for future popes and curators, weighing the value of total knowledge against the value of sacred mystery. The role of the underground as a sanctuary continues to evolve. In an increasingly digital and surveilled world, the value of physical spaces that are offline, private, and secure has skyrocketed. The Vatican's secure underground areas, whether ancient tunnels or modern reinforced bunkers, represent a form of sovereignty that is both physical and symbolic. They are a guarantee of the Church's independence and its ability to protect its leadership and its treasures in times of global crisis. This practical function is, in its own way, as important as the historical preservation. It ensures the continuity of the institution, safeguarding its ability to operate regardless of what happens on the surface. In this sense, the tunnels are not just about preserving the past, they are about guaranteeing a future. The lessons learned from preserving the Vatican's underground have global implications. The techniques developed to conserve its fragile frescoes, stabilize its foundations, and manage its microclimates are on the cutting edge of heritage science. Vatican conservators work with experts from around the world, sharing knowledge that can be applied to other ancient sites, from Luxor to Machu Picchu. The challenges they face: rising damp, microbial growth, the pressure of tourism, the vibration from urban traffic are universal challenges for cultural heritage. The solutions pioneered in the unique laboratory beneath the Vatican contribute to the preservation of history worldwide. The city-state's investment in this work is a gift to global culture, demonstrating a commitment to safeguarding not just its own story, but the very science of saving the past. In the end, the hidden tunnels beneath the Vatican resist a single, final interpretation. They are all these things at once: a sacred tomb, an archaeological site, a functional infrastructure hub, a symbolic heart, and a vessel for legend. They defy any attempt to fully categorize or explain them. This is the source of their enduring power and fascination. They remind us that the most significant places are those that can hold multiple, even contradictory, truths simultaneously. They are a physical manifestation of the complexity of history itself, never simple, never finished, and always inviting us to look deeper. The whispers that rise from the earth beneath the Vatican are not a single voice, but a chorus of millions, of ancient Romans, early Christians, Renaissance artists, modern pilgrims, and curious seekers. To listen is to hear the grand, messy, and utterly human story of belief, power, art, and memory unfolding across 2,000 years. And so, the story of the hidden tunnels beneath the Vatican finds its rest not in a final answer, but in a lasting echo. It is a narrative that transcends stone and soil, reaching into the very heart of what it means to seek, to believe, and to remember. These depths are more than archaeological layers. They are geological strata of faith, history, and human endeavor, each era leaving its indelible mark upon the next. From the humble first-century grave of a fisherman to the grandeur of a Renaissance basilica, from the whispered prayers of persecuted believers to the silent vigilance of modern scientists, this sacred ground has witnessed the relentless passage of time while guarding its mysteries with patient grace. The true revelation of the Vatican's underground is not found in Gikanai revealing some singular secret, but in understanding that the pursuit itself is what Fui gives the journey its meaning. It is a testament to humanity's unyielding desire to connect with the past, to find light in darkness, and to build meaning upon mystery. Whether one stands in the silent necropolis as a pilgrim, a scholar, or simply a curious soul, the message remains the same. Beneath the grandeur of human achievement lies a deeper, quieter truth, one of perseverance, memory, and the enduring search for something sacred. In the end, the tunnels do not lead to a final chamber of answers, but to a mirror reflecting our own longing for connection across time. They remind us that every generation must dig, preserve, and interpret anew, not to own the truth, but to honor it. And as long as that quest continues, the hidden world beneath the Vatican will remain not a closed secret, but an open invitation to listen, to wonder, and to remember.